Hello, I've just made my show reel for 2026 and I wanted to make a video kind of talking about all the different things I did, how it all came together, and hopefully kind of like organising my thoughts and my experience for me next year, in a year's time when I've got to make my next reel, and so you guys are able to take what I learned and do it in hopefully a less chaotic way. If you want to watch the reel, it's linked in the description below. I'm going to show clips from it in this video, but the full thing is in the description if you'd like to watch that first before listening to anything I'm about to tell you. I hope you're able to watch this video, watch my show reel, and then make up your own opinion for when it comes to editing your own show reel. I'm going to read you the plan for this video so you know what's coming up and what to expect. We're going to start with what the actual function of a show reel is. It seems really obvious, but if you're able to get this down before you start editing, it will channel all of your work and really focus what your reel is, how it represents you, your filmmaker identity, and how you can bring in more work for yourself. We're then going to go through how to create a coherent edit, tell stories, and make something that doesn't feel completely all over the place with like random clips from different projects, because I think that's something really underrated that a lot of people don't take into account when they're making their show reels. We're then going to go through your colour grade, your sound design and music, and then finally your fonts and call to action. These might seem like small things, but I think can massively impact the way that a new client perceives you. Across this video, I've also shared 3 kind of cheat codes, things which people don't really think of to do when they're making their show reel, but can really help you to stand out. 10 seconds about me. I went freelance about 6 months ago. I'm still figuring things out, but I'm really thinking about how I want to present myself and the kind of work that I want to make. So this is arguably the most important year for me to make a show reel. It's the end of the first calendar year that I've started working freelance. Ultimately, I want to find a middle ground between corporate jobs and documentary filmmaking to try and tell some interesting stories. I make a reel every year, but this time it was not just a director of photography reel. It's also like a filmmaker reel to show my storytelling, the kind of work I want to make, and I think this video can apply to any filmmaker. No matter what your specialism is, you can showcase your work in a way that emphasizes the story and the human side of things. There's chapters along the whole bottom of this video, and if you'd like to watch a show reel, I'm going to put it at the top of the screen now. The first thing to say is there isn't necessarily a requirement to make a show reel every year. So my first top tip is not to put the show reel year in the show reel itself. You can put it in the YouTube title or on Vimeo or in the link embedded on your website, but don't burn it into the video itself. That way that if you reach the end of the year and you think, this show reel kind of reflects the type of work that I want to make, it shows the skill set that I'm working at, then you don't need to re-edit the entire reel. Creating a show reel is very time consuming, especially if you're following the principles that I'm teaching you in this video and you want to make something really impactful that kind of has a story all the way through. It's a big project. You've got to bring in clips from all of your work essentially. So the other thing to suggest is to buy a hard drive just for keeping portfolio clips. I understand keeping original footage can be really expensive, so what I suggest is putting all of your favorite clips onto a timeline. You don't touch them, you don't grade them, you don't do anything, and you just export it in ProRes. It still takes up a lot of space, but you've still got that color fidelity to play with. It's not quite as high quality as the original footage, but it's pretty much all there. If you don't want to do that, what I'd suggest is exporting a really high quality version of every project without titles and without subtitles, and even without transitions. If you don't do this, you're going to run into loads of issues bringing in clips with a title burnt in, and you've got nothing that you can do about that if you deleted the original footage. But create a system, and throughout the year make mental note of which projects you think are going to make the show reel. So when make a show reel and why? To most people, a show reel is the culmination of your best work all cut together in a 1 to 2 minute video. The problem is, a lot of people just leave it there. That's the one guiding principle through the whole edit, and they don't really think about the other things that I'm going to share in this video. Your show reel is deeply personal to you. It should reflect who you are as a person and how you want to tell the stories you want to make. So the first step, every single time, even before you pick a music track, before you know which projects are going to be cut into your show reel, is what are the types of film you want to make, and what kind of person are you? Your show reel has 2 purposes. There is the practical purpose, which is to show that you can actually make the work and show what you're able to deliver. But the other half of creating a show reel is you need to think about immersion and pacing and telling a story. It has an emotional function too. The less you put in a show reel, the better. If you're unsure about any shot, cut it. It's got to be the absolute best of your work. less is more. Showcasing a few strong projects is way better than a load of aesthetically pleasing shots that are all over the place and don't have a thematic link or tie together in any way. My advice on this one is to create sound bites throughout the year. If you collect little snippets of things people have said, maybe something inspirational or hopeful, if that's the tone of showreel you want to create, then you can use those to support the B-roll and kind of string all of your different projects together. So in my showreel, the first interview we hear is completely unrelated to the clips we're seeing, but it's about people learning new skills and following creative interests and things like that. And as soon as I heard that line when I was skimming through an interview, my brain lit up with loads of ideas. I can cut between different people exhibiting their creative interests and their skills. There's definitely an art to doing this. If you're insensitive, you might insert a soundbite from a project which is completely tonally different to the footage we're seeing. So you've got to look for patterns and stories that you can tell with the B-roll that you've collected. You need to block footage together from projects. I'd say maybe have 4 or 5 key projects where you can tell all of that footage is from that project, and it shows your ability to be able to cover a story, to capture B-roll, and basically all of the pieces that you need for a film. If you show different individual clips, it doesn't prove anything. It just proves that you're able to point the camera in the right direction and make it look nice enough. I've shared a load of tips throughout this video, but my official hack, so to speak, is to cut in your own clips from other projects and other things that you've been doing. So for me, I was fortunate enough to visit Norway and France over the last 2 years, and I had some fantastic wildlife footage and landscape footage. There's a shot of a campfire. It's not from a particular project. As much as I'd love to travel the world and make kind of like international documentary films, I've not yet been given that opportunity. It's ethically dubious, but as long as you've shot a clip that you're really proud of and it makes sense within the story that you're telling. One example is there's a clip of a butterfly right near the end of my showreel. I didn't have time to be running around filming butterflies when we were shooting that project, so it looks like it was taken alongside the outdoor interview that the video ends with, but it's just a random clip of a butterfly that I shot in my free time. Everything in your reel should look like professional work, even if it's not. And you're not necessarily lying. Most of these shots I'm talking about are just inserts. I think all of the shots actually. A lot of times on shoots, especially documentary shoots, there just isn't time to get those insert shots, those establishing shots, those really fine details. So if you're someone who takes your camera with you for fun and you shoot things and you practice, then kind of have an idea in your head about the type of clips that you would be able to cut into your showreel. I'm going to quickly talk about color grading. I think color grading is so subjective and each project is very different. For some projects I've shot, it's just like Rec 709, I send it off, and then other ones it's something really stylistic, particularly with passion projects. I want to make it filmically very interesting to watch because it's going to serve as a portfolio piece for me. But even if there's a clip from that corporate piece that I just handed over in Rec 709, did a really quick grade on, I want to keep the original footage or a version of the original footage, so maybe like a 5-second clip that I know I'm going to use in the showreel, so then I'm able to color grade it afterwards. Next I'm going to talk about sound design and music, arguably the most important part of the process. I always like to start with a music track. I actually paid for a one-time license for a track that I really liked because I find 90% of my time editing is spent looking for music. I hate looking for music through royalty-free websites. I just went through a site that I don't have a subscription to, but I knew they made pretty good quality music. I like to start my project by cutting visuals to the song that you picked. It's really helpful to have things kind of happen on the beat in the first instance, so the video has a general pacing throughout. But once you have those projects in, you've then got to add the sound bites, the interview clips, all of the speaking. You can then find a secondary layer of meaning. Like what I was saying, you can listen to what they're saying, you can put a soundbite in which then paves the way for an idea for the clip that you're going to put over the video. Once you've cut everything to the music, you need to stay really flexible. Your showreel is going to change a lot once you start adding the sound bites and deciding the flow of the video. So don't color grade anything at this stage, don't sound mix, just have some very loose ideas about the clips that you want to put together, but then also different transitions between projects, but be very open-minded about shifting things around. What I actually did was wrote all of my sound bites down in a notebook and then reordered them from what I was looking at visually, because sometimes when you're listening to it, you don't process it in the same way. I think I had 6 sound bites in total for the video. The ones that are a little bit longer either have to come from a project that you're really proud of and you want to share loads of footage from, or it needs to be something that can kind of apply to a lot of different projects. There's a soundbite that I used very near the end, the one just before the last soundbite in the showreel, which is from a corporate video actually, but what they were saying was it was a medical video about dealing with pain and kind of finding motivation and a direction. So I started by cutting in the projects from that soundbite, but then the rest of what she was saying paved the way for some really interesting clips that I could then cut to. I think if there's a clip in your showreel which doesn't either tie into the project that we've just seen or we're just about to see, or link to the soundbite that we're hearing, then you either need to move it or cut it, because it just doesn't flow. And again, it's so subjective, but hopefully if you've watched my reel, you'll kind of be able to see what I'm talking about. Always have projects that are still within your niche in the back of your head, and there's a lot of things you can do to kind of like make it match to the footage that you're sharing. Yes, it might not have been shot as professionally, but if you kind of muddy the footage and you add aspect ratio bars, then it looks great. On that note, in my video, I basically just added like a crop on either side of a load of the clips from certain projects to make your footage look more varied. If everything's in the same aspect ratio, it kind of looks a little bit dull and you can't distinguish some of the projects from one another. So when there are a lot of similar clips next to each other, something you might want to do is add that aspect ratio. For me, this is like the modern day equivalent of when you throw black bars onto a finished film to make it look cinematic. So it is kind of that in a way, but I think helps to distinguish different projects. What I like to do with my sound design and music is level those out first. So all of my voiceovers are hitting the same peak. There's a setting you can do on Premiere to do this, but I actually did some of this manually just so like literally every word would peak at like -6 dB or something. Make sure you keep your levels quite high at the start, so then you can export them and bring them back in and turn them down and adjust them as you need. So I put all of the voiceover clips onto a timeline, leveled them out so they peaked at the same level, and then I did the same thing for the music. So the whole music track throughout would sit at the same level, and I also exported that. And if this makes sense, once you bring the music back in, you can then just keyframe one music track, as opposed to where you've chopped up the song or you've kind of keyframed it at different places. There's no real way to nest a music track. So bring that back in as a new track, and then you know that it's going to sit at the same level and you don't have to balance out the music and the voiceover constantly. The next step is to listen back to the showreel at the intended volume that you want people to watch it at and balance the voiceovers in accordance to that. But what you also want to do is level the music out for different emotional spikes and in accordance with what the people in the video are saying. So if someone's saying something particularly emotional, you might want to increase the music, or because you've leveled everything out, if there's a bit of the song which is like the chorus, for example, that would naturally be louder anyway, so you need to manually correct that, but at least you have control over it. So if you then need to dip it back down, if someone's speaking, for example, you have fine control instead of kind of losing track of where your audio levels are, because I'm no audio expert and it gets really messy the longer I edit for. The next thing to do is cut in your sound design. When I say look for every single sound in the video, look for every single sound in the video. Mute your music track, mute your dialogue, and then layer your sound until you can watch it and it looks like you've just taken like one clip straight out of the camera and you can hear every single sound near or far. The next thing to do is then level those out to around the levels that you think they would sit in the actual scene. I used panning as well. I always think like, if my dream client was to watch this video with headphones on my website, I want to have a really great experience where it's in stereo sound and it feels really immersive. I keep going back to immersion and pacing and the emotive side of things. That's what's most important for me. And I think the sound design plays a huge part in this. Another top tip I have is to use your iPhone for Foley. A lot of professional sound recorders would probably be shocked that I'm saying this, but sometimes there are sound effects which are pretty niche. Like, you're not going to be able to find them just searching on the crappy stock music search engine. So I just get out the voice notes app on my iPhone and I try and recreate the sound. Most of the time, if it's like 80% there, it's very believable, and if it's mixed into the rest of the audio, then you can't really tell that it was recorded on a really crappy microphone. It's just a big time saver. Obviously, it would be ideal to have every sound effect professionally recorded. I think most of the ones in my showreel are, but when there's that one sound that you just don't think it's worth the time searching for, you can recreate it yourself. Sometimes the sound effects you record yourself actually mix in with the video better because they don't sound too polished. A lot of my sound mixing process actually involved muddying some of the professionally recorded, really crispy sounds, lowering the volumes, changing the panning to make it sound like they were really part of that scene. And if you do it on your iPhone, you're able to dial all of that in. So I'd layered and mixed my showreel, and there was one thing that I really wanted to try that I've been thinking about doing for a while. I'm not a music producer, I have no music knowledge, but I had music lessons growing up and I thought, you know what, this can't be that hard. So I think in the space of about half an hour, I took the clips of the musicians in my showreel and played the same note that was playing in the music track that I'd chosen. So it sounded like they were almost playing in sync with the track. It was quite difficult because they were playing like world instruments, so I had to kind of research what the instruments were and what they sounded like. But I actually just did it on GarageBand. Lastly, we're going to talk about our fonts and our call to action. I'm first going to talk about something that I've been guilty of until pretty recently actually. Something I needed to get into my head was that professional clients, especially people who aren't as creative, they don't see big fonts as something stylistic and interesting, they see it as unprofessional. So small, clean fonts are the way to go, something that takes up maybe like a fifth of your screen at most. The same goes for subtitles. I used a lighter typeface for subtitles, and I also matched this to my website. I'm going to throw up a clip from my showreel last year. It's bold, it's in your face, it's crazy, and it's too much. I think when you're trying to prove to a prospective client that you can handle things carefully and take feedback into account and be nuanced with the way you make films, that doesn't really present a clean and professional image. So keep your font small and choose a nice clean typeface that isn't too goofy. As with pretty much everything I've talked about in this video, fonts are really subjective, so I hope you're able to watch this video, watch my showreel, and then make up your own opinion for when it comes to editing your own showreel. Hopefully I've covered everything in this video. I've explained how I made a reel that was a little bit more nuanced. I'd love to hear your opinions on the reel itself. There's definitely things I can improve, and I want to make it even better for next year, or whenever I next make a reel. I'd also like to see your showreel so I can see the type of work that you're making and be even more inspired for next time. I don't think you can share links in the YouTube comments, but you can message me on Instagram at Henry Makes Films. I'd love to watch. For the first time, my showreel actually reflects the type of work that I want to make, and even like the tone of the films I want to make. So definitely think about that. I think so many people just make like visual showreels. Even if you're solely a director of photography, you're going to want to think about how the stories tie together and still the types of projects that you're interested in making. Even if you do one very specialist thing and you're very good at that, you still need to have some kind of niche. Showreels aren't the be all and end all, but I hope this video has left you with the confidence to make something that reflects who you are and with the confidence to be able to share it with anyone. Alright, that's all for this one. I'll put another video on screen somewhere if you want to go watch that. But if not, I'll see you in the next video.